Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Huddersfield Planning Subcommittee meeting. Item number 1, then, membership of the subcommittee. Councillor Firth.
Thank you, Chair. Today I am Councillor Kushik.
Thank you.
Chair, it's apology from Councillor Imran Safda. Yeah.
Thank you. Any further apologies?
No, Chair. Sorry, Councillor McGuinn.
Councillor Bernard McGuinn is an apology. Thank you. Item number 2, then, minutes of the previous meeting. Mover and a seconder to say they are an accurate record. Moved by Councillor Sokol, second by Paul Davis. Item number 3, declarations of interest and lobbying. Councillor Bellamy, shall we start with you?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Item 10, I am a member of Home Valley Parish Council, but have nothing to do with their planning.
No, nothing to declare.
None that I'm aware of, Chair.
None that I'm aware of, Chair.
None that I'm aware of, Chair.
Nothing, Chair.
Chair, I think I got an email. This letter is around there from the applicant, objector or application. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Other than the email that Councillor Sokol alludes to, I've had nothing else.
Yeah, I had the same email about the item on page 13, but nothing else.
And exactly the same for myself. Same email, no other items apart from that.
I've also had the same on page 13. Item number 4, admission of the public.
There's no private items, Chair.
Thank you. Item number 5, deputations and petitions.
None received.
Item number 6, public question time.
There's no questions received, Chair.
Thank you. And before we go into our formal agenda, I have a written speech that I'd like to read out to the committee, and I'm sure if you've got questions, Julie is on hand to answer. So here we go. We are committed to the delivery of quality housing across the district that meets the housing needs of our residents. The after effects of the pandemic, current cost of living crisis and the national and international economic situation have made the delivery of new homes increasingly challenging nationally. This impact is being reflected in the housing delivery within Kirklees over the recent years. The government requires local authorities to deliver a quantity of housing each year and to be able to show there is sufficient housing land supply to meet the needs over a set period of time. For the first time since the local plan was adopted in 2019, the housing land supply in Kirklees has fallen below the required range of 5 years. This means there will be a greater expectation on us to grant planning permission for housing applications in Kirklees. Finally, the Council will proactively prepare a strategy to boost housing supply and will take this through Cabinet in due course. In the meantime, we remain confident that high-quality, well-designed housing proposals can still be secured even with a greater expectation placed on approving housing developments. Thank you. Any questions from members? Councillor Marchington.
Thank you, Chair, for that update. So is the land supply based on the current housing requirement in the current local plan?
Thank you, Chair. So I think what I just draw your attention to the final page on the update, so page 4 on the update. So in there, like I said, we've got the identified minimum housing requirements set out in there for part of the local plan. which is the 31,140 homes between the plan period. So we've still got that, that minimum housing requirement there, which we're trying to meet. What we're providing the update on at this moment in time is it's the 2023 update on the 5-year housing supply position, where we've dropped down to 3.96 years of supply for housing land. So that's sort of set out in the update. We've got policy here as well if there's any further queries, but I'm hoping that's helped to sort of address that query there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Julia. Councillor Marchington, supplementary, and Councillor Homewood.
Well, it's a second question, if that's all right, Chair. And the other thing is, does do the land supply figures take into any account of the implementation of existing permissions? So have we got land that's undeveloped, but that's land that's effectively used, but it hasn't been developed, and might not have been developed for some considerable period of time?
Yeah, but we'll bring in the policy officer as well, and then I'll come in if need be on the back of that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Julia. Yeah, so the calculation, it's sort of, we consider a wide range of applications and sites. So we'll have allocations where they've sort of been evidenced that they're potentially deliverable in the next 5 years. It includes sort of all the applications. We've got current applications. It includes things that have been in the planning system quite recently, so there's a reasonable expectation that it would come forward within the next 5 years. And we've got a fairly robust methodology for how we sort of calculated this figure, but it's basically, it considers a wide range of applications and sites that are reallocations or have been in the planning system at some point, in short.
Hi, Matthias, can you hear us? Sorry, I didn't put my mic on, apologies. Yes. You're next, thank you.
No, thank you, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, members. I won't keep you long. So, the 5-year supply position is based on our development plan, as Julia's told you. That's what we have to use at this time to calculate our supply. When you don't have a supply that meets the government's requirement, you apply the tilted balance, which the MPPF sets out, and you've got that in your update. The challenge for Kirklees is to maintain a supply or to try and become back within our 5-year supply position. That will be difficult in the next few years, realistically, looking at the volume of planning applications coming in and looking at the volume of houses being built year on year. The way to get out of not having a supply will be through a new local plan process, and the council, once it's concluded its review into the current local plan, can decide whether it wants to start that process of creating a next development plan. So for the intervening period, you will have to make decisions on housing related applications taking regard of the MPPF. But that doesn't mean that you can't consider other planning considerations significantly. So matters of design, matters of highways, matters of engineering, drainage, ecology, all those planning considerations are still very relevant to the determination of each application. And you must take each application on its own merits, and simply because we do not have a supply does not predetermine the outcome of a housing application. You must simply attach significant weight to the need to boost housing delivery when you make your decisions. So for the time being, I think you have enough information in the current update to give you some comfort that the council will be preparing a strategy to boost housing supply, and we will take that through our cabinet system. But for applications that are housing related, we will set out in each of the reports a very helpful way of you appraising the policy context and the material planning considerations. There isn't much more we can say about the housing supply. Housing supply is delivered in the main by the private sector, who are the main providers of housing. The council's role is to ensure that the planning permissions are sufficient, land is available, and that we are fair and reasonable in our assessments of each planning application. So I hope that's helpful for now. I think Julia and Teresa and colleagues in the room can answer any direct questions, but I want you to be confident and reassured that the administration and the planning service are looking into how we boost supply in the intervening period, and we will continue to update committees through the chairs so that you've got the best options and available information in front of you as we go through the rest of the year and into the new year. Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Matthias. Next is Councillor Homewood. No? Don't think there's any more questions on this. Thank you, Matthias. Thanks, Julia. We'll go back to our agenda then. Item number 7, the site visits. Can confirm that we attended the one site visit today. The first item then is the definitive map. Mark, thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair. My name is Mark Drydale and I'm a Definitive Map Officer at Kirklees Council. In this presentation, I will cover the agenda item, statutory provisions, documentary evidence, user evidence, recommendations, consultation and conclusion. The agenda item before the committee is not a planning application and concerns the definitive mapping statement of public rights of way. My remit is to maintain and continuously review the legal record of public rights of way, known as the definitive mapping statement, which is held under Section 53 of the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981. This includes investigations of formal applications for definitive map modification orders. A section of Calder's Lane, Meltham, is recorded on a definitive mapping statement as a public footpath, named Meltham 75. In 2018, Kirklees Council received an application under Section 53(5) of the Wildlife and Countryside Act to modify the definitive mapping statement. The application seeks to delete the public footpath and record a public right-of-way and was supported by various historical documents and 9 user reference forms. The Planning Inspector has directed that Kirklees Council must determine the application by the 30th of November 2023. The application route is situated to the southwest of the town of Meltham in the Holme Valley North Ward and is highlighted yellow on the map, leading between Lagards Lane and Calder's Lane. A site visit was conducted this morning at either end of the application route. For those who have not watched the route, I provided a collection of photos from a site visit I conducted in December 2022. The application route commences at Lagards Lane and leads generally north-northeasterly with a descending elevation along a grass earth surface. At this junction, there is a street nameplate and a public footpath waymark with a sign attached stating horse riding prohibited. The application route leads along a wide lane between dry stone walls and is directly butted by properties of Western Head Road, and there is a dense vegetation on its northern side. Utility apparatus is also present along the route. The application route is joined by Meltham footpath number 45 on its southern side, and there's a wooden post with footpath waymarks. A residential development is currently in progress to the south of the application route. The surface of the application route fully transitions from earth to tarmac, leading past residential properties. This section of Calder's Lane is used to access residential properties and is an uneven surface with several layers of tarmac. However, today we've seen that it's actually been tarmacked smoothly. The application route continues to join the public maintained carriageway of Calder's Lane, and there is a public footpath waymark opposite Calder's Drive. Kirklees Council has a statutory duty to make a DMMO, following the discovery of evidence which satisfies its provisions in Section 53(c)(2) and 3 of the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981. As Calder's Lane is already recorded as a public footpath, the test by which the available documentary evidence and user evidence is to be considered is the civil standard of proof, that is the balance of probabilities. Kirklees Council must be satisfied that there is clear evidence in favour of public rights and no credible evidence to the contrary. The evidence needed to justify deletion from the definitive mapping statement must be new, cogent, and of sufficient substance to displace the presumption that the definitive mapping statement is correct. So the documentary evidence is analysed in depth in Appendix A and summarised in the committee report on pages 13 to 15, paragraphs 22 to 27. Based on an 18th century map, Calder's Lane was an ancient cul-de-sac occupation road that once led to common land. The 1832 Meltham Closure Award extended either end of the ancient lane with 2 private carriageways. However, corroborative evidence from Meltham Urban District Council minutes in 1894 and 1960 showed that the predecessor highway authority accepted that the application route was a highway maintainable at public expense and maintained parts of the Calder's Lane to vehicular standard without the need for statutory adoption. This interpretation of vehicular highway status is supported by Highways Registry. Use by the public via horse would therefore be by right. So this is a council minute from 1894, and it states, the report received from Messrs Learoyd as to the repair of Calder's Lane was now read, the effect of it being that the board was liable for the repair of the same, not the respective owners. This council minute is from 1960 from Meltham Urban District Council minutes and states, the clerk submitted case for the opinion of council and also council's opinion on the question of the liability of the repair of various sections of the street known as Calder's Lane, from its junction with Matthew Lane to its junction with Lagards Lane, which covers the application route. It was resolved that the council accept the position that the street known as Calder's Lane is repairable by the inhabitants at large, and that the surveyor prepare estimates of cost of widening and metal in various sections of the road, and the clerk approach any owners concerned regarding their throwing into the highway any strips of land required for the proposed widening of the road in question. So based on the surrounding evidence, the 1894 and 1960 decisions seem to have been made on the basis that Calder's Lane was dedicated at common law and used as a thoroughfare by carts prior to section 23 of the 1835 Highways Act coming into operation. As no statutory adoption was necessary, the relevant highway authorities improved, widened and metalled various sections of Calder's Lane to vehicular standard, including to poppy butts in the 1960s. The user evidence is summarised in the committee report on pages 16 to 17, paragraphs 28 to 32. The application was supported by 9 user evidence forms, and user evidence was analysed under section 31 of the Highways Act 1980. The public right to use the way was brought into question by the Schedule 14 application in 2018. The relevant 20-year period to analyse the evidence is therefore 1998 to 2018. So of those that submitted a user evidence form, 9 people used Calder's Lane during the relevant period. 6 people used Calder's Lane throughout the relevant period, and 3 used Calder's Lane for parts of the relevant period. 4 used Calder's Lane monthly, 3 used Calder's Lane weekly, 1 used Calder's Lane twice a year, and 1 used Calder's Lane once a year. Due to the low frequency of use by 2 people for only part of the relevant period, the evidence of public use is mainly based on 7 people. However, the quality and quantity of use is sufficient to represent use by enjoyment by the public. And public use is without force, secrecy or permission, and without interruption. There is currently no evidence of a lack of intention to dedicate a public right-of-way during the relevant period in the user evidence forms. However, an adjacent landowner that objects to the application has stated that they have verbally challenged horse riders in 2018, resulting in a horse riding prohibited sign being erected at the junction with Lagards Lane, but it is not known who erected the sign. The landowner may have more evidence of challenges to use to present, but was not provided during the consultation period. Officer recommendations and reasons are provided at pages 44, 45 and 46, paragraphs 90 to 94. On the balance of probabilities, a section of Calder's Lane from Laygards Lane to Calder's Drive is a vehicular highway, based on the documentary evidence. From just south of Popley Butts to Calder's Drive, this section of Calder's Lane is considered to be an ordinary vehicular highway, now included on the list of streets with highways registry, and not within the remit of the definitive mapping statement. Public mechanically prevailed vehicular rights, otherwise known as MPVs, have been extinguished by Section 67 of the Natural Environment and Rural Communities Act 2006, over the section of Calder's Lane from Laygards Lane to just south of Popley Butts. Therefore, a definitive map modification order is recommended to delete the footpath and add the full width of this section of Calder's Lane as a restricted byway. A restricted byway is a public right-of-way on foot, cycle, horseback or leading horse and for vehicles other than MPVs. It is also recommended that Kirklees Council should actively support confirmation of the DMR, as provided on page 19, paragraph 40, and page 42, paragraphs 93 to 94. Alternatively, if members disagree with the first recommendation, a DMR should be made to delete the public footpath and record a section of Calder's Lane between Laygards Lane to just south of Calder's Drive as a public right-of-way, based on user evidence. A public right-of-way is a public right-of-way on foot, horse, leading horse, with or without a right to drive vehicles, or with a cycle. The width of the proposed right-of-way would be between 2.5 metres and 6 metres, based on evidence of use. Similarly, it is recommended that Kirklees Council should actively support confirmation of the DMR. Whilst it is not recommended by the officer, it is open to the planning subcommittee to turn down the application, which the applicant can appeal to the planning inspectorate. So as shown on the map, it's proposed to delete the footpath from point A in Laygards Lane, leading north-north-easterly to Calder's Drive at point B. Instead, it's proposed to add a restricted byway or bridleway from point A at Laygards Lane, as shown by the dashed green line, leading to just south of Popley Butts at point C. Results of the consultation are provided on pages 20 to 40, paragraphs 45 to 89. An informal consultation was conducted over a 28-day period in May-June 2023, based on the recommendation to record a restricted byway. The applicant and Councillor Greaves supports the recommendation. 4 adjacent landowners and 5 members of the public maintain objections to their application and recommendations to record a bridleway or restricted byway. The grounds of objection included narrow width, which is unsuitable for multi-users, creating danger to the public and the impact on wildlife. However, factors such as safety, suitability and wildlife are not matters that can be taken into consideration under Section 53 of the Wildlife and Concern Act 1981. Nevertheless, the definitive map officer contacted the project officer colleagues who confirmed that, together with the environmental rangers, they can clear the vegetation to the available required width. 2 consultees objected to the definitive map officer's research conclusions on the historic vehicular status of Calder's Lane and past maintenance by predecessor highway authorities. Documentary evidence was presented to counter their grounds of objection. Any duly made objections during the formal public notice period, once a DMR is made, will likely result in any DMR being sent to the planning inspectorate for determination by either written representations, public hearing, or a public inquiry. However, this should form no part of the decision-making process. So in conclusion, members are asked to select from one of the 3 options listed on page 12, paragraph 20 of the committee report, under the heading Guidance to Members. The first option is based on the 2 officer recommendations to record either a restricted byway or public right-of-way, listed on pages 45 and 46, paragraphs 90 to 92, under the heading Officer Recommendations and Reasons. The officer's preference is to make a DMR to record a restricted byway. Members are also asked to decide whether Kirklees Council will actively support confirmation of any DMR that is made, which the officer recommends. as provided on page 20, paragraph 40, and page 46, paragraphs 94 to 95. However, it has come to my attention that some of the numbering is wrong because the committee report has been printed differently to how I've submitted it. So I think the numbering's a bit off.
Sorry, Mark, is that it? That's it? Yeah, okay, thank you. Thanks, Mark. Okay, then the first speaker is the applicant, Mark Corrigan. Good afternoon, Mr. Corrigan. You have 3 minutes to address the committee. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Corrigan. I'm a resident of Meltham and have been for over 40 years. I'm employed by the British Horse Society as an access officer for Yorkshire. I'm an associate member of the Institute of Public Rights of Way. I'm the chairman of Kirklees Bridleways Group and a committee member of the National Federation of Bridleways. I am the applicant for the definitive map modification order. I would firstly like to commend Kirklees Council and the author of the report for producing such a well-researched, balanced and legally correct document. The law requires only that on the balance of probabilities is it more likely than not that highway rights exist. There is an overwhelming amount of historical information in this report proving that Calder's Lane is an ancient highway. My research led me to conclude that this is one of the original roads in Meltham. The national statistics show us that there are 22% of public rights of way recorded as bridleways. Kirklees has a mere 8%, one of the lowest in the country. This is due in part to many footpaths being incorrectly recorded. Calder's Lane is an incorrectly recorded footpath. There are currently 883 passport registered horses in the local area. This equates to an annual contribution by horse riders into the local economy of £4,898,884. Bridleways are essential for horse riders. Kirklees Bridleways Group has been in existence since 1988. Some of its members were riding this track before then. I accept the recommendations of the report that this track should be a restricted byway and would urge the committee to follow its excellent recommendations. One of the British Horse Society's charitable objectives is safety and to promote safe off-road riding. Confirming this application will contribute to a much-needed public facility for all users. While safety objections cannot legally be a reason to not confirm the order, safety is a reason to get horse riders off the roads. Nationally, since the 1st of January 2023, incidents involving horse riders are 2,402 road incidents, 1 human fatality, 61 humans injured, 35 horse fatalities and 72 horses injured. These statistics are shocking and highlight the importance of safe off-road riding. I urge you to confirm this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Corrigan. There's no more speakers, so it's over to the committee for any comments. Anybody? Councillor Davis, Paul Davis.
Excuse me, not really got much to add to what the applicant has just said, and in terms of the excellent presentation from the officer, and having gone through the information myself, I'd certainly concur there seems to be overwhelming evidence for this recommendation to be followed, and certainly at this point I'd put that forward and propose that we do confirm the recommendation from officers to make a DMMO with a restricted byway.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. So it's been moved by Councillor Davis, Councillor Bellamy and then Councillor Firth.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My only concern is, are we going to be able to cut back so it isn't as narrow? Because obviously it's quite a lot wider than what it looks because of all the overgrowth. Are we going to be in a position where we can cut it back? In other words, have we got the funds?
I asked the environmental project officers and they said they could during the current funding budget, so it should be fine.
Thank you, Mark. Councillor Firth.
Yes, on that very point, it's in the papers that the rangers are being consulted and they have committed to cutting it back, if you've read the papers. Following from Councillor Davis, not to prolong this event, I'd like to thank the officer for giving us all a very comprehensive report, good bedtime reading, and in saying that, I will, a great pleasure in seconding the officer recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Firth. So it's been moved and seconded by Councillor Davis and Councillor Firth. Councillor Sokol, have you got some comments?
No, I just want to ask about, we have seen the sign on top side on the, where you say no horse riding, that will be removed?
Yeah, if it's recorded as a right-of-way restricted byway, yeah, it'll be removed, because they'll have a public right to reuse it.
Thank you. Any more comments from the committee? No? Andrea, I think we'll move to the vote. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chair. So to vote then on the officer's recommendation, Councillor Firth?
For.
Councillor Sokol?
For.
Councillor Lawson?
For.
Councillor Homewood?
For.
Councillor Paul Davis?
For.
Councillor Bellamy?
For.
Councillor McGrath? For. Councillor Marchington?
For.
Councillor Paola Davis?
For.
Councillor Lee Richards?
For.
And Councillor Uller?
4.
Thank you.
Mark, have you got?
I just ask if that's seeking approval for the confirmation as well.
I think it's for all, everything,
for all
Mark.
of it, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Okay, the next application is page 197. Tom?
Thank you, Chair. My name is Tom Hunt, the case officer for this application. This is a full planning application for the material change of use to convert one dwelling into 2 dwellings at the original buildings with parking to the rear. This application has been brought to committee in the past for determination at the request of Councillor McGuinn. Members then resolved to defer the application requesting negotiation continue. chiefly to relocate the proposed parking space for number 4 from the front in order to have an improved relationship with visual amenity and highway safety. Amended plans have been received with revised parking arrangements. To recap, the host to be subdivided and its surrounding land is outlined in red, and the associated agricultural field is outlined in blue. An aerial view of the site is shown where members can see the existing vehicular access to Sharp Lane. No external alterations are proposed to the existing dwelling itself. There is to be a parking space to the side of number 2 for the use at number 4 Lom Lane, and a parking space for number 2 to the existing horse standing at the rear. Both properties would use the existing vehicular access into Sharp Lane. As mentioned previously, there would be new timber boundary fencing dividing the plots. There are no objections to the principle of development, which would reinstate 2 properties as originally built. The proposed parking space for number 4 has been supplied with a swept path analysis. This indicates the feasibility of safe movement for the parking space. The proposed parking arrangement was reviewed by the Highways Development Management Principal Engineer, indicating that this would supply off-street parking to support both properties, while making use of an existing access into Sharp Lane and be satisfactory, overcoming initial concerns. For these reasons, as indicated within the committee report, the recommendation is that the approval of the application would be delegated to the Head of Planning and Development, subject to the suggested conditions as set out in the updated report's conclusion. Nothing further to add, Chair.
Thank you, Tom. There's no speakers, so comments from the committee. Councillor Sokol.
Chair, I remember on the last planning committee we had a good discussion on this application. Yeah, the main issue was that time the 2 car parking spaces which were on the front. I think most of the members were in wanted to those 2 car parking to relocate on the rear. I think the amended application the officer got. I don't see any problem if we go ahead with make a officer recommendation. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Sokol. Councillor Davis.
I assume, Councillor Sokol, you proposed recommendation? Yep. Yeah. Yes, sorry, just to check. I'd like to second that because I think this is fairly straightforward. We did have a really good discussion at the last committee meeting, and it was the only outstanding item was the location of the car parking space. That's been rectified, so I see no reason not to follow officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. So it's been moved and seconded by Councillor Sokol and Councillor Davis. Any further comments? No. Andrea, I think we'll go.
Thanks, Chair. So to vote then on the officer's recommendation to delegate approval, Councillor Firth.
For.
Councillor Sokol.
For.
Councillor Lawson.
For.
Councillor Homewood.
For.
Councillor Paul Davis.
For.
Councillor Bellamy.
For.
Councillor McGrath.
For.
Councillor Marchington.
For.
Councillor Paula Davies. For. Councillor Lee Richards.
For.
And Councillor Uller.
For.
That's carried. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you. The last and final application, page 215, application 80 Cliff Road, Holmfirth. Teresa.
Thank you, Chair. My name's Teresa Harlow and I'm acting as case officer on this application. The application is brought before members for determination because the applicant is an employee of the Investment and Regeneration Service. This is the application site with all the land outlined in blue. The application seeks planning permission for the demolition of some existing agricultural buildings and the erection of a replacement single agricultural building. There's a full report before members, so I'll just show some images of the existing and proposed site layout. The buildings here hatched are the existing agricultural buildings that would be removed. The plan also shows the existing cubic capacity of those buildings. The proposal is to replace them with one building in the upper part of the site here. It's a traditional modern agricultural building with a stone plinth, Yorkshire boarding, timber boarding, and then a profile metal roof. At the moment, the existing buildings are rather unkempt and in a poor state. You can see the 4 buildings here and again, and then from public land here from Cliff Road. So it's 4 buildings here and it would be replaced by 1 building in the top corner here. There's no objections to it. It's appropriate development in the green belt and members recommend that the application be approved. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Teresa. We have one speaker, the agent, Alison Dunbill.
Good afternoon, Chair, members. I'm Alison Dunville, the agent for the application, and as Teresa's just said, the application is for the demolition of 4 existing agricultural buildings and the erection of 1 new agricultural building. The existing buildings on site are fairly old and dilapidated and not completely weatherproof. As such, they're no longer suitable for animal husbandry and welfare purposes or for the safe storage of animal feed. The new barn would provide a safe and dry place for lambing and a secure place for the storage of hay and feed for the sheep and chickens. The new barn would comprise of a modern, functional and weatherproof agricultural building constructed using stone, vertical timber boarding and profile metal sheet roofing. The development would result in the reduction of overall built development on the site, as the footprint and volume of the new barn is smaller than the cumulative floor spaces and volumes of the buildings to be demolished. Furthermore, the site would appear less cluttered with the removal of the 4 smaller buildings, and it is also proposed that the land on which the existing buildings are located be restored to its former condition, thus improving openness and the appearance of the landscape more generally. The new barn would be located at the rear of the field, and due to the topography of the site, the new barn would tuck itself into the hillside, and this alongside the design and materials will enable the building to blend in with the surrounding landscape. Finally, with regards to residential amenity, the nearest residential dwelling is located over 60 metres away, and as the land is already being used for sheep grazing, lambing and the housing of chickens, the proposals would not cause any undue harm to nearby residents by way of increased noise or odours. The proposals would greatly improve the visual amenity of the site and would have no greater impact on the openness of the green belt. The development would support this small agricultural holding moving forward, and it would therefore be greatly appreciated if members could endorse the officer's recommendation and approve the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Firth and then Councillor Marchington.
Thank you, Chair. After reading the application and listening to the speaker, I think this will improve the site, it'll tidy it all up, and I think I'd be delighted to move the officer recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Firth. Councillor Marchington.
Yeah, I think thank you for the time that's been put into doing this and the presentations, and I think I'm supportive of what Councillor Firth has said as well. Just another question: if the applicant hadn't been in the employment of the local authority, would this application have come to committee? No. So again, express our thanks again for the time that's been put in and the detailed information we've had to be able to make the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marchington. So it's been moved and seconded by Councillor Firth and Councillor Marchington. Just for clarity, on the update, condition 4, the colour of the roof, the agent has confirmed by email that this will be medium or dark grey. So that's the additional information. Any further comments from anyone? No? Okay. Andrea, we'll go to the vote then. Thank you.
Thanks. So to vote to move the officer's recommendation, Councillor Firth?
For.
Councillor Sokol?
For.
Councillor Lawson?
For.
Councillor Homewood?
For.
Councillor Paul Davis?
For.
Councillor Bellamy?
For.
Councillor McGrath?
For.
Councillor Marchington?
For.
Councillor Paola Davies?
For.
Councillor Lee Richards?
For.
And Councillor Uller.
4.
That's carried. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. That concludes our meeting.